Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Ksubas daf Samach Daled. We are going to begin on Samach Daled Amud Aleph, 7 lines from the top. Omer Rav Tovi Bar Kisna. Omer Shmuel. Koisvin Igeris Mered. A person can write a letter which verifies that this person is a rebellious spouse, al arusa, regarding a woman who is only at Erison, and as we mentioned before, she will eventually refuse, or she says, I'm not going to have tashmish, I'm not going to do my tasks, I'm not going to do malacha. The ein kois and geras merid al shemeres yavam. But this is not something which is written against a shemeres yavam. Again, a shemeres yavam who, let's say, refuses to have tashmish with her yavam. Meisvei achas arusa nasua. Afil nida fil chayla. So he said that it doesn't make any difference, even if a woman's a nida, even if she's a chayla, it doesn't matter. There is a din of rebelliousness by her, even if it's by engagement or nasuin. But then here's the key line: Yafil shemeres yavam. It says beferish that even when it comes to a shemeres yavam, there is an element of being a merid, of someone who's rebelliousness, who's showing rebelliousness. Slo kasha. Kan shetava hu, kan shetava he. It's all totally on if it's coming from him, says Rashi, shetava he, where she's making a claim of hu moired, and he's the one who is rebelling, or if it's that he's making the claim and she's the one that is rebelling. Omer Rav Tachlifa Bar Vimi Omer Shmuel Tavahu. If he's the one that's making the claim and therefore saying that she's the one that's refusing her marital responsibilities, niskakin lo, then we do force it, and therefore we would actually write this ksubas merid. However, this igeris merid. But tavahi, if let's say she was the one that's making the claim that he's rebelling, a niskakin law. So says Rashi, we're not going to force lichtoiv la igeris merid. We're not going to have this igeris merid written lahoisiv al ksubasa, to say that therefore now, because he is the one that's refusing, that now we're going to add monies onto her ksuba, as we mentioned in yesterday's daf. L'kamen masik perush of ozol mishum delo mifkadata apira v'ribia. There's a distinction between the man and the woman who is refusing tashmish. So one distinction is a man is obligated in having children. He's mechuyev in the mitzvah puravu. However, a woman is, interestingly enough, obviously you need a woman to have a child, but a woman is actually not mechuyev, according to this understanding, this Mandomer, in having children in puravu. And therefore, because of that, if he's the one that is refusing, if she's the one who makes the claim, and he's refusing, so then in the Skokin law. So we're not going to write a geras merid for in that situation. But the other way around, we would. So b'may kimta l'had de Shmuel. So how are we instituting and establishing the statement of Shmuel that it's, as we said, it's bishit tavahi. It's a situation where she's making the claim and he's rebelling. So in that situation, where he says that we do not write an igeris merid on the shemeres yavam, is in the situation where he is the one who is refusing. So hai koisin igeris merid al arusa la arusa meboile. So if that's the case, it also mentions that you write an igeris merid you do write an igeris merid not for the shemeres yavam, but you do write it for the shemeres yavam, not for the shemeres yavam, but for the arusa. But if that's the case, le arusa meboile. If we're talking about a situation where it's the man who is doing the wrong thing, he's the rebelling one, so it's the yavam against the shemeres yavam, so then it should say, when it is written, that it's written for the arusa, if it's the one that she's the damaged party, if that's what we're actually talking about in that case. So where it says holokasha, tani la arusa, you're right, you should actually read and insert that it should say li arusa. Says Rashi, v'koisen igeres al habal. So ma'ishna shemer shavam dulo. How come if the man, we said, is the one who's making this claim, or he's the one who's rebelling and saying, I'm not going to have tashmish, why do we say that dulo de'amrina le zil loy mifkat? They could say, go, you're not commanded. She's not mechuyev in the midst of puravu. So he's, even though he's making this rebellious act of no tashmish, but he is not holding her back from doing a mitzvah. And therefore, since he's not holding her back from doing a mitzvah, so therefore, we're not going to write it on a shemer shavam. Arusa nami, name zil lo mifkat. Why don't we say the same thing when it comes to the arusa? Because she's not obligated. It's still for a woman. So why when it comes to shemer shavam? So the reason why that we don't write any geras mered is because he's not obligated, because she's not obligated for Ravu, so then why would we write it for an Arusa? What's the difference? Rather, we're talking about a situation where she's coming with a claim. The Amra, that she says, Be'ina chutra liyada, I basically need to have a child, umaru l'kvura. I need to be able to have a child so that I will be able to have someone who will take care of me when I'm dead, basically, to shovel and bury me. A chutra liyada, a stick in the hand. Rotzani, says Rashi, shehili ben, I want a child, shiachsek biyadi, b'zikunasi, that when I get older, the eshen olav, uvayoy maisik v'reini. So basically, he'll be able to help me get around, and he'll also be able to bury me. So when she's an arusa, she could say, it's not right that you make this claim that you're not going to have tashmish with me. Okay, fine, I'm not mechuyev to have a child. There's no mitzvah puravu, but I want a child because I'm going to have a child when I get older. I'm going to want to have a child that's going to be able to help me and to be able to take care of me. So that's the reason why we write in the geras mered when he says that I'm going to rebel against you. So hachinami shemer shabim b'va machmas taina. So same thing. L'chayra, a shemer shabim should say the same thing. That why would we not write for a shemer shabim for the same reason? Ela idi v'idi shetabahu. Really, both situations is where he's the one that's making the claim that she's the one that's rebelling. So in that situation, l'chayra, it's really harmful to him because he's b'chuyev in puravu. So therefore, we should always write it, not just when it comes to an erison, but also for a shemer shalom. L'okasha kan lachleitz kan liabim. One is liachleitz, says Rashi, behi einu rotze, that she does not want el l'siavim. She wants yibum. Niskakin lo lichta v'geres mered aleha. So in that situation, we will write in igeres merid upon this. However, not when it comes to yibum. Yom Rav Padas, Amar Rav Yochanan, Tava lachleitz niskakin loy. If let's say the claim, again, we're talking about where he's making the claim against her, that she wants chalitza, tava lachleitz. So he's coming to do chalitza, but she doesn't want it. Rather, she wants yibum. So in that situation, we will write an igeres merid upon her. Tavo yabim in niskakin lo. However, when it comes to the claim of yibum, then we're not going to write this letter. This igeres merid, says Rashi, mitzvah, because really yibum should not be done. So if someone says, I don't want chalitza, so then we're going to write these. This is an igeres merid. However, if it's I don't want that regarding yibum, no. It says Rashi lefi shein mischav l'shem mitzvah u'kamishna achrein of yarmin lezil netziv achriti. Because you can go marry someone else. So ma'ishna liyabim galo. How come when it comes to yibum that we don't write it? Yarmin lezil netziv yisas achriti. She can always say, why don't you go and marry someone else, right? You can always marry a second person. So therefore, you don't have to do yibum with me. You can marry someone else and have a child. So therefore, I'm not going to. There's no need to have to write it. So even though it's true that she's refusing it, so we're not going to require because he can always marry someone else. So lachleitz nami nema lezil v'natziv v'sasachriti. Why don't you say the same thing? right? When it comes to chalitza, she could also say, well, go ahead and marry someone else. So shouldn't make any difference if it has to do with Yibum or Chalitza. He always has the ability to marry another woman to be able to have a child. The problem is that he says like this, because we have this attachment, I'm not going to be connected to anyone else. Since we're connected, maybe no other woman is going to want to marry me. So therefore, again, we're back to our question, l'chara, that's coming to tell you that it really doesn't make any difference. That when it comes to chalitza or yibum, you should say the same din. And the same din should apply. Either we write it or we don't write it. And if there's an excuse, there's a valid claim or there's not a valid claim. Here, they both can say, well, listen, we already have this emotional connection. We both have erison already. And therefore, I don't want to marry anyone else, or no one else is going to want to marry me. We already have this connection because you're my shemer shabam. So in both situations, really should be the same din. So why do we make a distinction between the two? Both of the situations is a claim for yibum. Kan commissioner rishayna, kan commissioner achrayna. What is that referring to? Ditnan, and this is the maskana. Mitzvahs yibum kodemus lemitzvahs chalitza. Initially, yibum, out of the two choices, yibum or chalitza, you should do yibum. But that's only then. When they did mitzvah, when they did this, they did yibum, it was l'shem mitzvah. However, now, unfortunately, we're not in the same madrega, and it's possible that it was not done for the sake of a mitzvah. It could be because of your own desire to marry this woman. Amr mitzvahs chalitza kodemes mitzvahs yibum. In that situation, chalitza is better than yibum. So the question is, what's better? Originally it was yibum, and now you shouldn't do yibum. Now we say that you should do chalitza. So therefore, based on all this, there's like question 5, TA 18 and TB 19, same questions. Let's read them. Omer Shmuel, ein kois v'nigeres merid al shemer shavim. So we said for a shemer shavim we do not rate a shemer shavim. We do not rate a geras merid. Now, be'ez oifen, in what situation, Myri dehi moredis, what is this talking about? Is it talking about dehi moredis ohu? She's the one rebelling, or he's the one rebelling? Baroitz alachleitz oliabim. Is it a situation where they want to do chalitza or they want to do yibum? Umay time of the Shmuel, l'maskana. So this is how he says. It's talking about who wrote Eliabim. He wants to do yibum. However, he moredes, she is rebelling. She does not want it. She does not want yibum. The reason why we said that by a shemer shavim we do not write it in this case is lafi she'en mechavanu mitzvah, because even though he wants to do yibum, but that is probably not for the right sake. Ukamishna achrona de mitzvahs chalitza kodemas, because we don't do things l'shem mitzvah, so therefore we don't do yibum. Even if he wants yibum, that's not considered to be rebelling when she says, I don't want yibum, I want chalitza, because we do chalitza instead. And if he really wants to get married, that's when she can say, go marry someone else. And therefore, when it comes to shemer shabam, because if she's saying, I do not want to do yibum with you, that is the form of rebelliousness in the situation. So then the din is that we're not going to write Nigeris married because she's not doing anything wrong, because we don't do yibum anymore, even though that's what he wants. So let's continue with TA 18. Let's see if it's any different. Shemer shavim, shetava hayavam liyabim. He wants yibum. Im kaisen Nigeris married aleha. Do we write a ksuas married against, a geris married against her? We said no. Umahet tainis shel hayavam. So let's see how he writes it. Be'ena regil. This is 18. Lamishri shayna, originally shemitzas yibum kaidman kaisvin. When it was in the good old days, when everyone did yibum, so that is a form of rebelliousness that she doesn't want to do it. However, tainasai kivan diagidabe loyavilachriti, and his taina is, listen, the reality is now that we're linked, I'm not going to marry someone, and maybe no one else will marry me either. However, Mishnah Achrayna, which is what we're talking about nowadays, ain't kaisen, because nowadays we don't do yibum. We'd rather them do chalitza. So the fact that she refuses yibum, that's not considered to be a form of rebelliousness. Question TB 19. My time of the Shmuel, the in kaisen the geras married al shemer yavam. So he says, "Kamishna achreina shemitzvas chalitza kodemas lemitzvas yibum v'amrin zil nitziv achriti." Okay, let's continue. So now we're up to the two dots. So the Gemara says, "An mosai hu poiches." How far do we deduct in the case of rebelling? When she rebels, as we said, either she doesn't want tashmish or she refuses to do her malacha, her marital duties and responsibilities. So it's all the way until the ksuba there's nothing left. As we saw in yesterday's daf, maybe we make announcements for 4 weeks to let everyone know this, and hopefully she would stop. Otherwise, we just say she doesn't get anything. Not that it's deducted slowly, but completely, very quickly. So there was actually a machlokas exactly how much is deducted. And one opinion says that we deduct based on the word of terapikin. So my terapikin. So Rav Sheshis is tira. Is referring to an astira. Okay, but common astira. How much is that? Pag de zuzah. So we deduct from her a half a zuz. A half a zuz is deducted. We deduct 3 terapikin shehem teisha moyin, which is equivalent to 9 mo, 9 moyin, mo v'chatzi l'chol yoyim, 1.5 each day. Amalei Rabbi Chia bar Yosef l'shmuel ma'ishna ihu di'avin l'lei d'Shabbos u'ma'ishna ihi d'lo yavin l'lei d'Shabbos. So if she rebels, so we deduct off her ksuba, and that's something which even takes place on Shabbos. However, in the sense where he rebels, and therefore we start adding monies onto her ksuba gets bigger. That we don't do we don't include Shabbos in the equation. So why not? What's the difference between her and him? So it's not her or him, it's deduction versus adding. Ihi de mivchas lapachis, over when it comes to her rebelliousness, we're deducting from the ksuba. So lo mexikas schar Shabbos. It doesn't look like there's reward or salaries that are being taken over here. Because as Rashi says, there's a gezer mishum mekach or memcha or schirus. It looks like business transactions. However, ihu, if in the situation where she's rebelling, in which where he's rebelling rather, and therefore, again, if he's rebelling, so therefore the ksuba is added. So if he's the one who's the rebelling one, then we do not consider Shabbos as a day where the monies keep being added. Ihu de moisufi komoisvas. We continue to samach dal mebeis. What happens when he rebels? So monies are added onto the ksuba. So mechzik schar Shabbos. There it already looks like schar Shabbos, and therefore we don't do it. Amalei Rav Chia bar Yosef l'shmuel my bein moed l'meredas. It doesn't seem very fair. She gets a smaller kanas, only half a dinner per day, deducted from a ksuba, but he gets a larger kanas of 1 dinner every single day. Doesn't seem very fair. It should be the same. So Amalei tseilomad mishuk shels nus. Go and look at a house where there's harlotry, where there's prostitutes. Mi seichres mi. Who's the one that pays who? In other words, unfortunately, for those who are involved in this, who is it that's involved? A man goes to the woman, which probably demonstrates, says Rashi, Habi Omer Ha'ish seichres isha. He pays the woman. Shmamit sar maruba. It shows that him not having tashmish is something which is more painful and stressful than her. And therefore, for that reason, when she rebels and says, I'm not going to have tashmish, therefore, because of that, that deduction is going to be different than when he refuses and the monies are added. So therefore, again, when her kanas is a smaller amount, he's going to get a larger kanas when she rebels than when he rebels, because she is causing him more tsar than he is causing her. Davar acher ze yitzro mebuchutz ze yitzro mebifnim. So Rashi says kishui nicker umisgana. The fact that his male member could be erect, and therefore because of that, it's an embarrassment. However, a woman, even if she has the same physical sexual desires, it's not as apparent, and therefore by withholding tashmish, it's less embarrassing. And therefore, because of that, the knas is not the same. Next Mishnah. Hamisharis ishdai alidei shlish, says Rashi. So you have to provide mazonas for your wife, but what you do is, instead of you doing it, you have a third party, a shliach, and you appointed them to do this for you. So you should make sure that she doesn't get any less than 2 kabin of wheat, or 4 kab of barley. Rabbi Yossi will pasik sa'oirin. So he says that it's not designated when it comes to barley, except for him, because he lived in this particular location. The Gemara is going to explain this, in which perhaps the barley is more available. But you should give her half a kav of legumes, the chatzi lug shema, and some oil, the kav groigerus, a kav worth of figs, or mana devela. Again, mandavela are these pressed figs that are in a circular fashion. The ein loy paisik l'umasan. If, let's say, you don't have them, then you have to basically assess it. Paris from a makam acher, and provide fruits from another location. Nice la mita. You have to make sure that she has a bed. Mapa, Tzrash says rach mimachseles, like a soft mat. It's softer than a mat. Umachseles, and a mat. The nice and little kipul or roisha, you have to give her some type of a hat that she wears from year to year on her head. The chagor lemasneha, and like a belt or something to gird her loins. You have to give her shoes from holiday to holiday. It says Rashi, l'chol shleishas regalim, during each of the shlosh regalim, the kalim and other vessels, shel chamishim zuz, mishana l'shana, every single year. The ein noisin lo chadashim, we don't give her new clothes, which are typically quite hard. B'mosacham, in the summer months, it says Rashi, v'yishehim chamin, because they're so hot to wear, and you don't want to wear them during the summer months. Not worn out garments in the rainy season. You should give her kelim which are worth 50 zuz. So by giving her these proper clothing, it says Rashi, so she'll be able to have all these garments. You should also give her money for her own needs. So you should also eat with her. Now Rashi says doesn't literally mean eat. It says shuhu leil oina. Or maybe it literally could mean eating with her, but it means every Friday a person is supposed to spend time with one's spouse. The ein noisin lo ma kesef l'tzarka. If let's say you don't give it to her, masi deshalon, then she gets to keep her the work of her hands. Umahi oisa lo mishkol. So what exactly does she give? Umahi oisa loy mishkol chamish slayim shasi b'Yehuda shehin eser slayim b'Golil. Oh, mishkol eser slayim erev b'Yehuda shehin esrim slayim b'Golil. The im haisa menika. If let's say she is nursing, poichasin la mamasi adeha, seductim oisifin la al mazonaseha, we have to give her more food. B'medim or murim ba'ani shemi Yisrael. This is like the bare minimum. However, everything else should be lefi kvaida, what is considered to be respectful for her. So mani masnisin. So who is our Mishnah like? Lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, lo Rav Shimon. Why? Did not mekamas shiurai. What is the measurement? Rashi says regarding eruve tchumim. So you can on Shabbos only go 2,000 amos. However, you make an erev tchumim, so therefore it allows you to say that that's your new makom shvisa. That's where you're staying on Shabbos, which allows you to go up to it and then another 2,000 amos. So it has to be that you have enough food there, which is mazon shtei sudo. So chol echad echad for every person who's interested in partaking in this erev. It has to be the food which is like even weekday food doesn't have to be Shabbos, which means it could be even less significant. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Shabbos l'chayil. No, it has to be like Shabbos food and not weekday food, which that means more. Actually, both of them are saying this to be lenient. See if Rashi explains this. Okay. Rabbi Shmuel Oimer, Beis Sudos Hein Shtei Yodai Shel Kikar Mishosh Kikaros. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan Broika Oimer Kika Halakuach Bepudyoin. So he says a bread which is purchased for a pidyon mi arbet sayim l'sela. Rabbi Shimon Oimer Shtei Yodai L'Kikar, 2/3 for the bread, Mishosh Kikaros L'Kav. Chetzel Abayas Amanuga, so this talks about other dinim. Half of a loaf of bread is L'Beis Amanuga, says Rashi. Hashoy Bebeis Amanuga, someone who stays in the house of someone as Saras, or a house as Saras, Kedei Achilas Pras, the amount of time eating pras, which is a Chatzi Kikar, is Matame Begodim. It makes your clothes Tameh. B'Chatzi Chetzi live Solas Gvia. So half of a half, or a quarter, will passel the gvia, says Rashi, Oichel shir chatzi pras, a person who eats this amount, or half of that, tameim nifsel gufa imol echoil betruma. So that person is going to be not able to eat truma, ad shiyitbol until he's toivel, and who beis beitzim, this is the measurement, which again is chatzi chatzia. Chatzi chatzia l'kabel tumas oichlin. When it comes to Tumas Oichlin, so it's even that smaller measurement, money. Rav Yochanan ben Broika Tamni Haben. According to Rav Yochanan ben Broika, he holds it's only 8 meals, says Rashi. He eino sricha el yodalad. Shimon Aser Haboyin. 1 second. Tamni Sudas Haben, says Rashi, Kaboyim Chitim, the mastis in 2 kav of our Mishnah, but arba esri suudaisi srichel Shabbos. So Rav Shimon tamit tzari havoy. According to him, who says 9 sudos to a kav, so he actually would require 18. So olam Rav Yochanan ben Broika, who could oimer Rav Chis that say mehem shlishel chenveni, they should deduct 1/3 for the chenveni. Hachanami aisi tilsa, you deduct 1/3. Shadi laihu, so kati tarti tzari havi. So now you're at 12. So if in fact it was 18, so 1/3 is deducted for the chenveni, so you're still at 12. So ochelos imo leili Shabbos. So what does that mean? So half of a kav equals 3 meals. So only up to 12, not 14. So we're saying no, it's including Shabbos. So now it is 14. Hanichamandi armachila mamish almandi armachila tashvish ma'akamemar. So this whole Mishnah, as we said, the word achila is supposed to be ochelos. It's the question is, what is it referring to? Is it eating or is it talking about tashmish? So oid toleaser haben. L'char it should be 13. El k'yom Rav Chesed semehen mechsel chenveni hakanami asi palga, give half to the chenveni. Hakanami asi palga, give half v'shadi lahu. So kasha the Rav Chesed lo kasha haba asri. The question is, do you also give them for the firewood or not? So it should be 17. So come on, grab chidka. That a person has to eat 4 meals. If you'll take rabbanan, dal chadel archi parchi, deduct 1 for the guests. Hashti asal hachi. If you'll take Rav Shimon rabbanan, dal tlas archi parchi, you can deduct for the guests. Rav Chidka dal tarti archi parchi, you can deduct 2 for the guests. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see if there's any more questions. Adkan.